Hello, YouTube. It is Cosmos here, bringing you my yearly YouTube video. And today we're going to be talking about something very cool. SMITE Season 10 Joust tier list. I know I've been absent from the YouTube scene for a while, but I haven't been absent from the SMITE scene. Specifically Season 10. I've probably played more in Season 10 than I have in the past, I don't even know, man, 2, 3 seasons maybe. Now, I've been playing a lot of Smite recently, so I've been collecting a lot of knowledge for you guys on the type of gods that are really, really good in Joust, really, really bad in Joust, and, just really good in Smite overall with all the new items, new changes, class buffs, etc. For those of you that don't really know me very well, I'm a very tenured Joust player in the community, and, I know some things. So I'm gonna take my best shot here at making a tier list. I actually have it pre-made and have gone through a series of edits on it over the past few days, talking to other Grandmasters players and getting their thoughts and insight on it. So it's in a pretty good spot right now. I tried to put all the gods in order for how strong they are, but it'll mostly be by the tier is how you'll know like gods are kind of in the same envelope on how strong they are. So we're going to start by renaming the tiers here by my own personal preference. I'm going to name this the SS tier. We kind of have to pick slash ban. We're going to have the S tier. First pick slash ban. So those guys should always be drafted pretty much, or usually will get drafted, in my opinion, in the first phase. So they're even going to be either going to be banned out, picked in the first phase. Though anything in the SS tier, you're kind of like, it has to be picked. It has to be banned, like, immediately. So very priority, like, you have to respect the characters in that tier. And we'll see if there are any gods in that tier. Then we're going to have the A plus tier underneath the S tier for strong picks. So pretty much anything A plus or above is going to make up the majority of drafts that you're going to go. In theory, though, then we have the A tier after that. And these are for playable gods, and they shine in the right slots. So they're kind of like gods you want to have in your arsenal, because they'll sometimes just do really, really well in a particular draft that you've got, but you kind of don't really know that they're going to be that good until you get there. And then we have the B tier, which is going to be for like okay gods, but there's probably something better to go. So like you probably want to be like in the A or above, but sometimes the B tier can hold some pocket picks that you're gonna want to lean towards in certain scenarios. So they're not bad by any means. It's just you're not going with them a lot of the time. You need a very specific scenario for them. And then we have the C tier, which is going to be the for fun pick tier, and we usually won't go down there when we're picking, but sometimes we want to mess around. And then we have the trash tier. This tier is just don't pick these gods. So we'll start from the top and we'll go all the way down. Though, like I said, the ones you want to pay the most attention to are probably going to be A plus and above. And then for you guys that are more tenured players, you know how Joust works. You've experimented with a lot of different gods. You can look from even the B tier and above because the gods in these tiers are definitely going to be good, but they just need very particular scenarios, in my opinion, to be played in the most effective situations. So, first thing is first, we are going to hit the SS tier. Is there or are there any characters in this tier? From my perspective, yes, there is one character that belongs in this tier. Drum roll, please. Thank you. Nezha. This character needs to be picked or banned. It has to be done in the first phase. If you are letting this character through in your second pick, you better have something seriously planned for this dude. You better have 2 picks in your mind, 2 super, super strong picks that are going to deal with this character. Now, I've heard some people say that double heroism, which is a strategy up and coming with Season 10, kind of makes this god fall off a little bit, but I very much disagree. Are you going to tell me now that Kuzenbo has also fallen off because of double heroism? Because he pushes and the push does 0 damage and they get an 800 health shield? No, you're not going to tell me that. This god has way too much setup. He's way too slippery. That ring toss is so effective at stacking cloak. He works so well with the new items, Stone of Binding, Prophetic Cloak. He uses the Glad Shield super well. He's always used Glad Shield super well. And his build is just really strong right now, and the character's always been super strong, and he's incredibly flexible in any draft, pretty much. So you have to respect this character. And his damage output, even when built 5 out of 6 items tank, 6 out of 6 items tank, is still something you need to respect. And he can keep somebody in place. He is one of the hardest gods to play against because of that ultimate. He can keep someone in place, and he can get to you from so far away, from 70 units, he can launch that sash and get to your backliner. You always have to be aware of him. So, that is why Nezha is the one and only god in our must-pick/ban column. And that does it for SS! Down to S we go. The first god in S, just below Nezha, Atlas. If you've been playing Joust, if you've been playing SMITE since this god's release, you know how strong he is. And especially in Joust, where frontline is a particular thing that's focused around, Atlas is huge. He has low cooldown abilities with a lot of CC, a lot of slows, and he has an ultimate that reduces power, reduces protection by a percentage, and pretty much makes anything in the game killable. That compounded with the fact that he uses the new items in Season 10 incredibly well, possibly the best prophetic cloak stacker, and an incredibly strong use of Stone of Binding, in addition to being able to play from a range as a guardian and provide good poke and lane clear, Atlas is the first ranked guardian in our list. Next on our list, possibly a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Controversial, you might say. I'm going to put Kumbhakarna after Atlas. And not just because he got a cripple on his 2 from Season 10. But this character has always been kind of a very sleeper, pun intended, joke. What was I going to say? He's just really strong, man. He's got a lot of hard CC. He can lock down targets really well. A carry hates to play against this god. Legitimately, just you remove someone from the game. He can pick one guy, and that guy is not going to have fun the entire game. And because of that, he can combo very well with a lot of different characters. And he's a very safe pick. He's hard to kill. You don't really get to focus a Kumba very well with pretty much any combination of gods. So I'm going to put Kumba way up here. The big difference between Kumba, though, and other top guardians, other top tanks that you're going to see in Joust, and possibly is the reason why you don't see him played very much, even though I believe he's a very top ranked guardian and on this list number 3, is because he's a completely different style of tank from most of the top guardians. He's a very peel-oriented, low damage output guardian, and most of the top guardians, as we're going to see, are not that style. So possibly because people just don't know how to play him, don't know how to play his playstyle, don't want to play his playstyle, Kumba is kind of forgotten in the top ranked games and top competitive games and tournaments and whatnot. But I believe he is ranked number 3. Next up, we have Kuzenbo. Complete opposite of Kumba. Very hard to follow up of this god CC, but he emanates immense pressure, is probably the tankiest guardian in the game with that passive, even tankier than Bacchus, and has more flexibility than Bacchus because of the cooldown resets. He's able to just throw his weight around, and he stacks Cloak really easily. He uses the new items, he uses Binding, he uses the Glad Shield really well that he can now build. Kuzenbo is just, he's a menace, dude. He's super tanky, gets in your face, he solos carries, he zones people out, and they can't kill him back. That's his job, and he does it darn well. The only problem is it's very hard to follow up off of his CC because it's a little unpredictable. But because he's just so hard to kill, he deserves that 4th spot. Next up, we have Cabrakan. Very similar style to Kuzenbo, very hard to kill, but instead of mitigations built in, he has protections built into the passive on his 2, though he does have that 5% damage mitigation on his passive that affects allies in an aura, which is not as effective as the Kuzenbo passive, but still gets things done just about the same. Little worse. So he's extremely tanky and is really good at locking down those targets that don't have dashes, or don't have jumps, rather. The targets that have dashes / don't have an escape, this guy bullies them. Thoth, AMC, Agni, they really suffer when they go up against Cabrakan. Morgan Le Fay, like, a lot of carries are just shut down by picking this god. And so his relevant CC stocks the cloak well, and able to lock down a lot of carries / cancel out your want to pick them. Puts Cabrakan at near the top of this list. And now for the final character in the S tier, which I think is a must-picker ban in the first phase, is, you guessed it, he's been missing, Sobek. Our guy. So Sobek, very much like Kuzenbo and Cabrakan, he's really annoying to play against. He's really tanky, really slippery. He lives, and he puts a lot of pressure on carries in a slightly different manner than Cabrakan, where Cabrakan's kind of like locking him down, put him in the same spot, and making sure they can't escape. Sobek makes them not escape by just kind of like flinging them around and slowing them down and displacing them, and he's just really annoying to play against, this character. So he is in the big 5 in the S tier. And so I think that's it for the S tier. I don't know if there's really anything else that it's kind of like, I need to pick or ban this in the first phase, or I'm really struggling here, or I need something like this in my draft. So we're going to move down to the A+, the strong picks that have a very large contention to be considered to round out the rest of your draft, because you're probably not seeing 3v3s between these 6 characters every game. You're going to have to pick some other stuff. So, the first ranked in our A+ tier that I'm going to put down is going to be an assassin, second assassin on the list, and the first non-tanky character, believe it or not, or a character that I don't think should be built tanky on this list, Set. Now this character is kind of crazy. You know, Ao Kuang is popular in Joust right now, right? Because in games where people aren't dying, and people have lots of health bars, he's able to execute them, kind of like Achilles is able to do that. Set kind of does that, but better, because he does a lot more damage. And if you build this god full damage, which you should be doing, possibly one defense item, maybe a Stone of Binding, a Spirit Robe, a Magi's Blessing, depending on the game, this god, when put in the right situation, will completely destroy tanks. And it just so happens, he kind of just destroys single carry comps too, because he can kind of materialize in on them and one-shot them. And it's fantastic. And then he kills the tanks too, because they can't out DPS his ult. So he just kills you, and you lose, and you're sad. And that is why he is the first rank in the A+ category. He just does a ton of damage. It's as simple as that. The reason why you might not see him as much, in my opinion, is because that full damage assassin is not very known. People don't really play full damage assassin in Joust, but I think it's super strong. So I'm going to put him up there. Next after that, we're going to see our first mage, Agni. I think Agni is the top mage in Joust right now. Maybe a little controversial, but with Season 10, I think he has the best build. Tablet of Destinies, Soul Gem, Soul Reaver. He uses those items incredibly well. And Book of Thoth being the first item, plus flat power for all mages. Agni is hitting like a truck right now, guys. He has so many abilities that deal damage, and with the Season 10 changes, I believe he uses them very possibly the best. So I'm going to put him right there. Next on the list, we're going to see our first warrior. Surprise, surprise, the warriors are you don't see him until number 9, Cucullin. I think Cucullin is probably the most flexible warrior. He can be a setup god. He has pressure at all points in the game. He's strong at all points in the game. But he has a little bit of trouble trying to solo a backliner late, and he does get bursted pretty hard due to the fact that he doesn't have built-in protections or mitigations, unlike a lot of the top tanks. But because he just has so many buttons, and he has a lot of hard crowd control, ways to set up his team, he's still a super strong warrior, and in my opinion, the best warrior. Above Achilles, believe it or not. But we'll get to that later. Next up, we have a Guardian. Where's my guy on this list? I gotta find him. Starts with a B. You know him, you've seen him. Bacchus. Season 10 changes have given him a nice little use of the breastplate of regrowth, though in my opinion, honestly, it's not even that good on him. I don't even think you should be building it, to be honest. But it is nice in some niche scenarios where you really just need to be faster. But Bacchus is very tanky, kind of like the other Guardians that are above him. The difference is they do things a lot more often than he does things. So he's just a little bit of a step below, but he's got relevant damage. He's annoying for a carry to play against, and he's incredibly tanky. Kind of like all these gods up here. The only difference is they do it in half the time. They have half the cooldowns that he does. So, yeah, Box is a little lacking there. So he's just going to be just a step below, but still strong. Very good pick. Next god here is going to be another assassin. Another full damage assassin with possibly one defensive option just to allow you to play more offensive. Stone of Binding, Spirit Robe, Magi's, once again, are the big items there. Though, if you can pull off the full damage, you want the full damage. Camazotz is going to be our 5th pick in the A+ tier. He's just a damage character. Kind of like Set. It's just damage, damage, damage from this guy. The biggest difference is you're probably buying Blink first relic regardless of what the other team has, unless it's like, you gotta get beads kind of thing. Because it just allows him to close that gap so well. The Season 10 buffs to Assassins, or the class buff rather, of having flat pen, and the non-conquest buffs for both Set and Camazotz have really upped them in Joust in my eyes. Although I really already thought they were strong, those class buffs and the item changes have just made them feel so strong. Their damage is super present, and they're just able to kill things, man. And that's what we want. Damage, damage, damage. Things are not tanky enough to survive them. So that's what's going to put Camazotz there in my point of view. Next up, we'll be putting Achilles. You know, he had to be top somewhere and didn't make top 10, unfortunately. I think Achilles is possibly the most overvalued character that I've seen Season 10 in drafting. Because this character, although very good, is very, very beatable. I find teams banning this god in the first 6 every single game. First ban from a lot of teams every single game. First pick from a lot of teams when he doesn't get banned. And I do not think that is worth it. He is not better than the gods above him that I put on this list. He's very strong in drafts where you cannot kill the opposing carries. Neither team can get to them, so it becomes tank on tank battles, and he wins because he doesn't have to do 30% of their health, right? He just sunders them. It's like a sundering axe type of thing, you know, and then he just gets to execute you. But you don't have to let the draft play out in such a way that that's the way the game goes. And in my opinion, is why Achilles is below all these other characters, but still strong. Still very strong. because he doesn't pressure that backliner quite as hard as a lot of these guardians do, a lot of these assassins do. Like, say there's a one carry comp, right? Pretty much every single one of these gods, with the exception of maybe Kakolin and Agni, is going to pressure a backliner way harder than an Achilles is, even with the blinks. After Achilles is a god that you might not expect. Our boy Hercules. This guy super profited from Season 10 changes. There's a lot more mana, MP5, in builds now because of Breastplate of Regrowth being a really big one for Hercules. And it allows him to do a lot of things. And there are mitigation, lots of mitigation items. Let him run around and kind of just be in your face and push you around and not die. Makes Hercules a top contender in the A plus tier. He's a very strong pick right now. Does relevant damage, survives for a while, and is able to push people around and be really annoying to play against. After Hercules, we've got Fenrir, our third assassin. He has fallen off a tiny bit in my eyes. He used to be maybe up here with these Guardians, but people kind of figured out how to beat him. He still has a really good counter pick, still has very relevant damage, relevant ult, gets 80 power from his 2, so you don't really need to build a lot of damage to make him effective. But he just doesn't feel the same, man. He really doesn't. So I'm gonna put him up here in the A plus tier, though he's still really strong at killing those Thoths, those pesky Thoths, running down those gods with dashes as their escapes. And you never can count a Fender out, man. Next up, we have the second mage of the list, our good friend Thoth. Thoth is just pure damage. He'd be higher on this list if he were more survivable. But fact of the matter is, pretty much all these gods above with the exception of Agni, kill this guy relatively easily. Actually, Achilles doesn't kill him very well, but they kill him or control him in such a way where he just has a lot of problems. But if you pick him in a good spot, you got a lot of peel for him. It's hard for them to get to him, and he's able to get his damage off, which he will be able to get his damage off because he's so long range. A good Thoth player is going to make your life miserable, provided the draft goes well for him. So it is possible that maybe I should have put him down in the A tier since he has so many counters, but his damage is so relevant, man. I gotta put him up here. Next on the list, I'm gonna drop in our good friend Scylla. A lot like Thoth in terms of very large damage output, but not from quite the same range. The difference being she is a lot safer, has CC immunity, can play from super far back and still deal a lot of damage. But it's not as constant, not as threatening as Thoth's a lot of the time. But she's just a really solid, safe mage that does a great chunk of damage. I think she's slightly below Agni because Agni is able to use those new items so much better than she is. The Tablet of Destinies. He uses Soul Gem better, though I think you should build Soul Gem on Scylla for that little bit of extra sustain. But she's just a very solid mage. Great damage, great safety, great pick. Next up, we have kind of a similar god, Kronos. Once again, great damage, great safety, but he can get bullied out a little bit by things that have range on him, things that are a lot tankier than him. Like Kuzenbo is going to bully him out. Akumba is going to make his life miserable because he's trying to get those basic attacks off. Ideally, Cronus is trying to get a little closer than a lot of these other mages to deal his damage because he wants to get that confirmed stun. Wants to hit those basic attacks. But he's very survivable. Does great damage with a burst build or even a basic attack build, though you probably want to focus more on burst. And that's going to put him just up right there with Scylla. Next up is the Mage Killer God that is a mage, Changita. I kind of want to put her above Thoth. I'm going to put her above Thoth. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put Thoth under these two. Yep, Chang'e. Very strong god. Like I said, she's the Mage Killer. She does super well with that Book of Thoth build. She doesn't use Tablet of Destinies very well, but you can go like Book of Thoth, Soul Gem, and then you got like your Divine, your Obshard, your Soul Reaver. And she just hits really hard, dude. She blinks in, and she just blasts the carries. This character is so good. When the other team is drafting Run It Year carry, you draft Chang'e to turn it on them and blink on them instead of them blinking on you. And you can turn their win condition through their draft into a win condition for your draft. And that makes Chang'e, in my eyes, top 2 mage. Okay. Who's next? Who's next? Another mage. I really grouped the classes together. I'd honestly pay more attention to how I rank gods in their respective classes than how I rank the like assassin, then a warrior, etc., etc. Because it's going to be more accurate in my mind of how I see it. So the next mage is Vulcan. Really good damage. He's very similar to Thoth, where he's got a little less range than Thoth, but against a lot of double front lines, they can't kill his turret. So he just does a lot of damage just through his turret, and then he can play pretty far back, but he's slightly safer than Thoth, but not as safe as Thoth, because he has slightly better peel for himself, but it's not enough to stop those knockback immunes, or knock up immunes, rather. So, like, a Kuzenbo is going to sit on him, Sobek's going to sit on him, Kumba's going to sit on him, Atlas is going to piss him off, He has a lot of trouble against very, very specific picks. Nezha is going to absolutely destroy his life, ring bounce off the turret, no CC immunity, and the kit's got to beads that ult every time. If Nezha's getting his beads, he's going up and he's dying when he comes down. So he does have weaknesses, but his damage output, his follow-up is super strong, and that's going to put him just under Chronos here. Next up is a pressure pick. Oh, Vulcan's also a pressure pick, if that wasn't obvious, because he has so many damaging abilities. So you can pick him in those drafts, and that's what makes Vulcan really shine in my eyes, is when he's able to get that pressure and maintain it, it's hard for people to dive him, because he'll be ahead of them, and he'll be killing them if they don't play it absolutely perfectly, and the Vulcan is playing it very well in terms of his spacing. But next is Soul, super high pressure god, possibly the highest pressure mage, early game especially, but vulnerable to things that can just materialize in on her and kill her. The Blink Chang'e that we were talking about, Agni can stun her from so far away and start raining fire. She gets controlled by a lot of these guardians, but things that can just get in and kill her before she's able to finish channeling that Disapparate make Soul feel very weak. But you can make her feel very strong if you can get ahead. You're just gunning that tower down before 5 minutes, and she just feels so oppressive if you can put her in the front seat and make it so she can kind of impose her will instead of get the will of the other team imposed on her. And so that's pretty draft dependent on how that pans out. But her kit is very good, and the way she works is very good at creating that early pressure for your team and establishing that dominance to where you can shut out some games in 15 minutes or under against good players, well-matched teams, but you just have more pressure and you just win outright. So that's what's going to put Soul up here. And I do think you should go a burst build on her. You can go 2 rings. I like the rings. Gilded Arrow into Telkines, gives her incredible early pressure. Then you go Cyclopean Ring. Actually, no, you don't go Cyclopean Ring. You go Spear of the Magus, so your 2 ult combo does a crazy amount. And then you go Cyclopean Ring, and then you finish off with burst items like Obsidian Shard, Soul Reaver, Ratatouille, that kind of thing. And now we have an unexpected god here. A hunter. Which hunter is it? Is it Medusa? Is it on her? Nope. Ho Yi? Nope. Is it one of the newcomers? Ishtar? Kurnanos, the ones that shine? In SPL, This Worlds? No, it's not. It's Shibalanke. Shibalanke is feasting in Season 10 with the class buff of extra basic attack damage, compounded with the extra basic attack damage on his branching bolas, compounded with dominance having attack speed and maintaining the MP5 that already had, compounded with starter items being allowed in, or Death's Toll rather, being allowed in Joust still. X-Ball is very strong. This god hits like a truck. He got a little buff. He got attack speed on his ult when he's channeling it. And it's honestly not that big of a deal. But this god, he just feels so good. You have to play him to understand why he feels so good. He just hits harder than all the other hunters, man. He hits so hard. You put 3 points in the 2, and then you focus the 1, because that's around when your dominance is coming online, your tier 2 trans to your dominance. And then your basic attacks just hit really hard, man. They hit so hard. And that's all there is to say, really. He has relatively good safety with his dash, his CC immunity. Though he can be slightly abusable to, like, the Fenrir's, to the Chang'e blink ults, to the frontliners in his face. But the difference now is he hits them so hard. With the dominance transcendence into ferocious executioner build, this god melts everything. And that's going to put him up here. Followed immediately by Chiron, another hunter, up here in the top strong picks. Not as prevalent due to Season 10 buffs, but still super strong. He's kind of acts like a mage. You can build him full ability damage, or you can build him a little bit of hybrid, or you can build him for full basic attack. But the main advantage Chiron has over most of the other hunters is his range is incredible with that ultimate on the Centaurus. He's able to just blast a carry follow-up in a way that no other hunter really can do. And it gives him that range, and he's able to play from such a safe distance. He's got good self-peel, good team peel with that cleanse. The giddy-up gives him a good way to make distance when people get on him. And his damage output is really solid. Chiron's really good right now, guys. Next up, back to the Guardian class, the class that runs this show. Something that you may not expect is our good friend Jormungandr. Now, if you followed me for a while, you know that I really like Yorm, and I promise this is not completely personally biased. I think that Yorm is in a really good spot right now, and he is super strong. He's not playing that traditional Guardian role of getting in your face, he's seeing you, tossing you around that you expect from a Joust Guardian. He's bringing the damage. This god, with Season 10, his build is incredibly effective. He's able to get Gladiator's Shield. He stacks Cloak, in my opinion, the best of all the Guardians, comparable to Atlas. I think better than Atlas, because the people just step in the pools, man. They don't respect the pools. And it's really easy for him to hit anyone. As long as there are magical and physical class on the other team, you're building Cloak first item on this character because he stacked it so easily. Tablet of Destinies, incredibly easy to stack on Yorm. I build it late in the build, sometimes even 5th or 6th item, and you're able to stack that sucker up super fast. I think it's better value to get Cloak, Glad Shield, Genji's as the core. Your first 3 items. He uses Stone of Binding super well, so there you have it. Cloak, Stone of Binding, Genji's, Glad Shield, starter item, and what was the last item I just said? Tablet of Destinies. Boom, there's the build. You're welcome. I think Yorm's super good. Does a ton of damage. That was kind of like the one thing that he was kind of lacking for a while is he's kind of like a nice counter pick into things that like throw you around like a Nezha or like a Sobek so you can't get plucked, type of thing. Though it was also kind of like you're sundering yourself when they hit you with that, so you kind of have to play careful still. But his damage just wasn't enough for a while. But now I think it is with Glad Shield, Tablet of Destinies, and he's able to maintain a lot of tankiness too with the cloak. You max out prots, and you're still top damage. It feels great. Next up, Guan Yu, uh, super strong warrior. The only thing he doesn't have is lane pressure in terms of clearing the minions. He does not clear the minions until he gets a few points on that Tower of Assault. He's kind of like Achilles in that you play around your kill pressure on the wave more than the wave pressure, but he is very effective at killing those carries. Vulcan's having a tough time. Xbalanque's having a tough time if he can't get snowballing, though Xbalanque will probably kill him. So Xbalanque, there's a reason why he's above Guan. He's going to bully out a Thoth. He's going to make Agni's life very hard. The thing you really want is Guan Yu +1 diving the backline. Like a Guan Yu with a Kuzenbo is going to make for a very, very tough game for any carry in the backline. And that's why Guan Yu's up there. And his heals, also very relevant. But this guy has great damage output, great sustain. His ultimate is incredibly useful. Very, very much a top one, probably, warrior ultimate in Joust. It's just his wave pressure is not so great. Doesn't offer very much to the clear there, but his fight pressure is incredibly, incredibly good. The only issue he really has is closing gaps on like a double carry comp. Like you're dead before you get to them type of thing. So if you get behind versus carries, Guan Yu's feeling pretty bad, but otherwise he's a super strong god. Next up, we got a Guardian, Terra. I think this god is a little criminally underplayed in top level games that I see, but it kind of makes sense since there are so many, in my opinion, better Guardians, specifically these 5. The Kumba doesn't play as much as we talked about. These 4 are kind of getting picked up more often than anything else is a thing, but Terra is kind of like the next best thing here. She has great wave pressure. She can help clear the wave, which is something that's amazing from any Guardian. Like only really Atlas or Kuzenbo or Kumba is kind of doing that in the tiers above her in terms of Guardians. And she's got a great CC, great team fight ultimate. Does kind of suck. They kind of onk your ult, but you can fight through it. The ult gives a lot of different buffs and debuffs that make the onk not matter as much. But she's just a very consistent god. Very, very nice to have a Terra on your team. When you got a guy that's, a little more uncomfortable with Joust, doesn't really know the ins and outs of it, how to, play aggressive, but not too aggressive, Terra's a great god to put him on. Very safe god. Next up, we got our good boy, Horus. Horus, I think, is super good. He locks down a target incredibly well. So, like, a Guan Yu is suffering against a Horus. A Guan Yu going against a Horus X-Ball? I'm not being the Guan Yu there. Reduces prots, uses the Stone of Binding super well, makes things super squishy, super safe character because his engage is not his disengage. He's not Sobek plucking himself into the fight. He's dashing in and he's able to dash out, or fly out, rather. And with coordination, this god can become very strong because he's able to lock down one target. And in Joust, if you can get a pick on one guy, a clean pick, like at 15 plus minutes, you're winning the game. So Horus is super strong. Similar to Horus is Ganesh. The only difference is Ganesh is kind of an ult bot. So you kind of need setup for your Ganesh, which is a little bit awkward sometimes. Like you would think the Guardian is the setup, but you need setup for your Guardian. And you have to play around his ult. But he's a good counterpick, and his ult is really impactful. You get a good ult, you got a good team fight. So that's why Ganesh is up here. Great CC as well. And great combos with other characters, like Fenrir. Next up, we've got our good pal Artio. She's profited from new items, Breastplate of Regrowth, Stone of Binding, stacks Cloak well. Great all-around god, great CC, relevant damage, has trouble killing multiple carries, or, like, she's not killing X-Ball ever. X-Ball is kind of bullying her, but she's great setup, and just a really solid god. She's just a step below these other guys, in my opinion. Next up, we have our next mage, Morgan Le Fay. She might honestly deserve to be like with Vulcan and Kronos, maybe even above them. I'm gonna put her here, actually. Oh, please, let me put her above Kronos. I think she is really strong right now. Her season 10 is very good. Very good. She uses Tablet of Destiny super well. Soul Gem. The proc mages, the mages that use the Soul Gem, the Soul Reaver, and the Tablet of Destinies, and don't need a lot of cooldown to operate well, are the top mages, in my opinion. And then there's Scylla, who is just a really consistent mage. Morgan Le Fay, with just the 10% cooldown from Sands of Time, she's still able to pump out that damage very consistently. And like I said, she uses the proc items very well. And her damage is just a lot. She's got a lot of CC, a lot of damage, relatively safe. The only thing is she doesn't have that instant escape that something like Scylla has. That's something like Agni has through the dash. The Thoth has through the dash. Instead, she has to be a little better positioned and use that movement speed and that hard CC well, so she's not like getting blink ulted by Cabrakan and dying every time. But her damage is super relevant. Next up in a similar vein to Morgan Le Fay is Baba Yaga. Where is she? She is right here. This character is just damage. She is damage, 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 damage. The only issue is when she uses her ult, she's like Scylla, but slow and clunky and very killable and sunderable. And it feels super awkward when that happens. So yeah, she also uses the items really well. Tablet of Destinies, Soul Gem, Soul Reaver, blah, 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 blah. Stacks Charon's coin, which is preferable to Obshard if you can stack it, which she can with her passive. Stacks the Book of Thoth with her passive, blah, 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 blah. She's really strong, does a lot of damage, but she's kind of random, and her ult's a little weird. Baron. Next mage, build this guy a little tanky. You definitely don't want to be going Baron full damage, but he's super high impact mage, a lot of CC, great at the support role, even not with a lot of damage, just with the Prophetic Cloak type of deal. He's still able to deal a lot. Prophetic Cloak, Glad Shield, Genji's is the core. Feels really good. Then you get Tablet of Destinies. He's kind of like Yorm, but he doesn't go in the ground and pew pew, you know? But he's really good. Great heals. And the Baron's Brew is very nice for your team. Solid God. Definitely want to consider picking him. Next up, a little bit of an undervalued warrior. Sheva. Really relevant CC, 2 knockups. Kind of like a pull knockup on one of them. Gets onked a little easily in his ult, but it's not that bad. The long channel on his ult kind of hurts him sometimes, especially when you're like against a hunter and they're kind of pelting you the whole time. They're doing that. But he's very slippery, hard to kill, a lot of CC, exactly what you want from a warrior. His mini Genji's guard on his passive, in addition to his MP5 and HP5, also super strong. The biggest downfall I see with Sheva players from observing Joust is that people don't really know how to play him. I saw Master's Border Sheva channel his ult, tell his teammate to come to him so he can heal him out of the Achilles execute range, and he used the 2 button from his ult for every single pulse of the ult. That depressed me a little. Next up, we got our good boy Surtur. Now, a lot of people know how to play this god, and I think people are kind of, you either think he's super strong or super weak from the experiences you've had with and against him, but he brings something that a lot of warriors don't, which is a really easy to hit setup ability from range, practically unmissable, where he chucks a minion slash fire elemental slash a hot rock and stuns them. Stuns an opponent. And it's really annoying to play against if they've got follow-up to that, because he can make your life miserable. He's also incredibly naturally tanky, has protections though instead of mitigations, so he's not quite in the same vein as our Kuzenbos, our Kabrakans. There are other mitigation-heavy, very slippery characters, and he's got good damage, good lockdown. If you don't have a dash or a jump, and you're a frontliner, you get caught in this guy's 3, you are going to be trudging through mud, my guy. This guy can lock you down. but he can also get locked down, which is why he's a little lower in the A+ tier, because this god can get exploded. If you get a nice CC on him, you drop some Sunders, your ADC's pelting him, your mage is smacking him, type of deal, he will die, and he will die fast. If his 3's not channeled and he's not getting those passive little poop pellets sucked into him, he goes down quick. And a lot of the time you can see a Surtur that isn't positioning very well, doesn't really understand the limitations of their character. They're going to get pounded by people who know what they're doing against him. That's why he's a little bit down here, but still strong. And then our boy who has faded a little bit is next. Our guy Osiris. Little sad, little sad. His damage output just isn't as gnarly. You think he might be pretty powerful with the cloak. He's able to stack it fairly easily, but he has the same issues he's always had in that his wave pressure isn't fantastic. He doesn't really offer a lot to clearing that. He's just really tanky, super safe. But it's hard for him to kill a carry. You want to get into that chin size build, but it's so hard to stick to these slippery carries these days. You definitely need to have something else diving with him, like a Kabrakan, or an Atlas, or a Kuzenbo, or a Sobek. But his damage numbers just don't compare to these other guys a lot of the time. So it just doesn't feel as good, even though you're living for a while. So that's why Osiris has fallen a little bit to the wayside, but it's still a strong pick. Next up, we have Ares. Strong counter pick against a lot of these gods with dashes and non-CC immune ults. Ares can bully these guys out really effectively. Those chains are really nice. The only problem is, once again, he's kind of like, he has to set himself up. I don't know, you kind of like want somebody else to set him up for those chains, and sometimes those chains just don't feel impactful enough, and they're just out DPS you, and you just feel worthless, especially in like a late game fight when people are starting to do more damage than you were doing with your 300 damage chains at level 3. It starts being a little painful for Ares. You get sundered and then you can't get away, and then you're ulting because you're like, I gotta do something, but then you die. So yeah, sometimes he profits, sometimes he doesn't, but he's definitely a good pick. And the final thing to round out A+ is Xing Chen, our good pal. Xing Chen, safe pick, isn't carrying the game. He operates the Xing Chen role. You have a player who's not comfortable. You want him on something safe, something that's not going to die. Maybe he's playing from EU. He's got 150 ping. You're sniping the guys on NA. You pick Xing Chen. You can't fail. You can't fail on this god, man. He's good. He's consistent. But he's not carrying. He's not doing a... He's just good, man. He's just good. But he's not the best. And he just has to live with that. Play the Xing Chen role. Okay, next up. In the A tier, the first god we have is a mage. So these picks are kind of like, you don't want to pick them in the first round, probably. But if you get him as your last pick, you're like, ha, 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 got you with the trump card type of deal. Janus is going to be the epitome of that tier. If the opposing team has drafted Dive the Carry, Janus is really good at playing cat and mouse. And being the mouse, he's the Jerry of the Tom and Jerry, and he makes life miserable if there aren't proper things to dive him. If you've picked Achilles plus Atlas, those two characters are never going to kill Janus. You picked Achilles, Atlas, and Merlin. This Janus is getting to your Merlin every time, and he's blasting him. There's nothing you can do there. But if they pick Janus early, you notice it. You slam him with a Kamazotz. You slam him with a Blink Chaga. You slam him with a Kumba. You slam him with the Kuzenbo. That guy's gonna die. But in the right composition, against the right stuff, Janus is too slippery to kill, and he's gonna deal damage, which is just what you want from your mage. Deal damage, don't die. Fantastic. Next up, we're going to get into some more Hunters. Our good pal, Ishtar. Unexplored pick and Joust, in my opinion. I think she's good. In the right draft. You don't want to draft her too early because she's pretty counterable. But her burst is incredible. Her pressure's incredible. She's kind of like Soul in that she generates pressure through her kit, but not as much pressure as Soul and not as safe as Soul. She has an incredibly strong team fight ult that goes a long distance, gives her a lot of range, and she's got intense follow-up damage, amazing wave clear, amazing buff clear. If you draft correctly, this god can run that game and really, really pound away on those tanks. I just think that people aren't good at her because she's new. And in Joust, people don't play hunters, right? Who plays a hunter in Joust? It's griefing. So people just haven't played Ishtar. But she's good. Promise. Next up, we've got our good guy, Hachiman. Super safe. Very reliable damage output. Probably isn't going to die when played correctly, but he might not be able to kill when played correctly if he doesn't get put in the right spot with the right draft. Like, if he's got a Kuzenbo Osiris blinking on him every fight, he's probably not going to live, and he's probably not going to kill them. He might live, actually, but he's not going to kill them. But when put into the right situation, he can have a very large impact. That ult is very long range. He's very safe. He's got good wave clear with the banner from range, so he can't really get pressured out of clearing the wave. He's just a really good god. Really nice god. Really nice god. If you can get that pressure, mainly for hunters, it revolves around your team drafting pressure such that they're not sitting on your tower line with Emperor's armor at 8 to 10 minutes into the game, and you are just suffering because you're just afraid they're going to dive you the entire game. If you're in that spot, you're suffering as a hunter. You're trying to draft pressure, pressure, pressure out the gate. Make sure you are the offensive player in the draft if you're drafting hunters. Which leads us to our next hunter, Medusa. Pretty much the exact same thing. A little less safe, but a little more burst than Hachiman. Solid wave clear, and is going to generate a little pressure. Not as much as Ishtar, but still good pressure. Her ultimate, long range, kind of like both the guys ahead of her. And she just got good burst, man. She got good damage. But like I said before, if she's forced into a situation where she's kind of camping, just like praying she doesn't get blinked on by the tanks, she's kind of suffering. So you got to pick her in the right spot with the right draft. Once again, we got another guy, exact same situation, Kurnos, able to output immense damage when put in the right situation, just like all these other gods. Then we have another mage, the Morgan. She super shines when she has an amazing transform to go. When can turn into Guan Yu, she can turn into Set, she can turn into Kulu, she can turn into, give me another one, not Kukulin. This guy can have a lot of impact. When put in the right spot, pick her too early, and they pick an assassin, and you die. But you are the team with the assassin. You get to be the aggressor. You're able to hide around corners and get the jump on people. The Morgan shines. She's got a billion-second ult cooldown now. But if you can get her in the right spot, she'll have a big impact. Next up, maybe criminally low on the list, according to the drafts I've seen, is Merlin. Really good damage. His Season 10 build feels really good. The only problem is he's still on cooldown until he's level 20. This guy has the longest cooldowns ever, man. You cannot get away by just building Sands of Time and deal enough damage to be as impactful as these other mages that are above him. Early on in the game. Late game, it's really good. It's really fine because your ultimate cooldown scales down so hard. You get the Soul Gem online, you get the Pendulum online, you get the 500 pot, you're rocking 40% cooldown at all times, and he's just cooking, getting Soul Gem procs, Soul Reaver procs, Tablet Destiny procs, getting ran down by Kuzenbos and Kumbhakarnas and Hercules and Fenrir's and getting Chang'e ulted and dying a lot. But you put this guy in the right spot, you let him cook to the late game, you let him get those items online, he will carry. He does so much damage with these items. The Season 10 build fits him incredibly. It just sucks getting to that late game. If they pick stuff that can dive you easily, they got Blink Gods, you do not do enough damage to kill them, you're going to poke them out, or you might poke them a lot, but the poke is on a little bit too high of a cooldown for you to do anything really impactful in terms of killing them without like all three of your teammates on them. So that's why he's a little lower. Unlike Morgan Le Fay, who's able to pump that damage out a little bit more consistently, a little more often, kind of like Agni, Thoth, like Vulcan. Next up on this list, we got good friend Mulan, which is budget Nezha. She's kind of just, Nezha but worse. Her damage output isn't as high as the warriors above her, but she's got good control. You put her in the right spot and she can do a lot. She can do a lot of damage. And she's, like I said, the budget Nezha. She's pulling people, bro. She's good. Like Nezha or a Mulan horse could be a combo. Next up, Gilgamesh. This god's been nerfed too many times to be a top warrior, man. Kind of sucks. Still does damage, still has decent CC, has low pressure on the wave, but really amazing teamfight abilities. So, you just got to pick him in the right spot. It just so happens the right spot almost never shows up because you're picking something above him. Next up is Fafnir, super pocket pick god. I have the Master's Border Fafnir. I'll flex it in casuals from time to time. Very strong character when used in the right compositions. I think he super shines when he has two carries on his team. You can go double physical with this guy. You could go like set X ball, and it would actually work. You rush that upgraded bracer and set X ball, go ham, just because they just do too much damage, bro. You cannot be tanky enough to survive those two diving you with Fafnir buffs on them. It just ain't happening. And they can get pressure with this comp too. So you just got to have him in the right spot at the right time with the right team, and he just goes crazy. Next up is our good pal Kulu. Double Kulu with the Morgan. Love it. He stacks Cloak super well, uses the item super well, Glad Shield. He loves having that. Stone of Binding, he loves having that. Really great team fight ult, but he's an ult bot. Kind of like Fafnir. Though Fafnir can be a little bit less of an ult bot just by giving buffs to his team and just protecting them. Really making one guy's life miserable when his ult's down. Kulu can kind of like push you around a little bit when his ult's down, maybe get a root out a little slow. Fear if he can land everything, but without his ult, this guy's kind of a little lacking. And even if you do get into that ult state, you get sundered, you get hit by a hunter, the X-Ball's slamming you, you're gonna die, and it feels a little bad. He gets shut down a little bit by the walls too, Kabrakan, notable. Executed by Achilles, like assassins just kill him when he's ulting, hunters kill him when he's ulting, the mages do a lot of damage to him, and kind of puts him a little lower on the scale, but when picked in the right spot, double Kulu, cough cough, can be used quite effectively. I missed a god on here. What am I missing? I'm looking at my reference sheet. I'm missing someone. Oh, Vamana. Slide Vamana right up here just above Mulan. Uh, if you have him against the right stuff, he's just going to kill the carry every time. Every single time. And it is miserable for the carry. He does well into X-Ball. He does well into Chiron. He does well into Agni. He does well into these characters that, they can't get away. They can't get over the wall. And he's faster than them. So he catches up and he kills them. He can't just get onked and sundered and insta-die as easily anymore now that his ult is just a constant shield and not a heal. So you get him in the right spot, and this god can stomp down some carries and potentially win you a draft. The only problem is he's completely ult focused. So if you're not getting the kill off the ult and winning the fight off the ult, kind of like Kulu, things aren't looking so good for you. So that's why he's not higher. Next up, we have Charty B. She should honestly be with these other hunters, but I'm gonna leave her down here because she kind of does like a slightly less because she doesn't have an ult. But she's incredibly safe. You got to put her in the same position as the other hunters, though. You want to put her in a position where she's able to play a little bit more aggressively, though she is a little bit better than the others at playing defensively. It's just her offensive presence isn't as strong, but she does deal decent damage and has the protection shred, so she can shred like the best of them when given the opportunity. She just needs a little bit more time to scale. So she's playable. You can pick her. She's good. She's not better. Next up, we've got Yu Huang. He's kind of like Charybdis, but he's a mage, and he has an ult. He's safe, very safe, does decent damage, but he can't really kill the tanks very well. Like, he's really bad at it. But he's gonna probably survive them enough to run away. Probably, unless they're really far ahead of him. So you pick him in the right spot, double carry draft. They can't get to him. He's able to just hit them for free, and your carries or your front lines are winning the fight. He can be impactful. You get a big ult, it can win the game. But there are a lot of other mages that you want to think about before you're thinking about him. Like, you're really just picking him for safety, honestly. He's got okay, he's got solid okay damage in comparison to the others. Doesn't use tablet the greatest, though we can build it. And his pressure isn't like he doesn't have pressure. No pressure. He's just a safe pick that isn't gonna kill tanks. Next up is Hell. Completely opposite of Yu Huang. Very not safe. Very high lane pressure. Balls to the wall. Don't pick her early and get counterpicked and lose. But you get her in a spot where she's like cleansing the Kumba silences or something like that. You know, she's getting good. She has really high cleanse value, and things aren't able to live in her butt with Fenrir Brutalize, with Chang'e Blinks, with Thoth Poke, um, with an Assassin, Kamazot set, running the numbers on her, a Guan Yu horse, hunting her down. This character can do a lot. Like, you got her lined up in I don't know, like a Horus and a Ganesh. And that sounds like a terrible comp. Never do that comp. But the point is, you line her up, and she can do things. Like, say they pick Baron as their mage, and he's going tanky, and then they picked, I don't know, Sheva. Like, she can do okay into that. She can power through. And then they have, I don't know, like a Guardian. They got Kumbhakarna. They got Atlas. She can live Atlas. She can live Atlas Sheva Baron. And then she can get her damage off, and she can sustain and provide you guys a lot of pressure to allow you to get that lead and get ahead and really snuff out your opposition. Just got to pick her in the right spot. Next up, we got Cupid. A little less damage, focused damage output as the hunters above him. He might honestly be above. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Let's switch these guys. Yeah, he's better than Charybdis. He has not great wave clear, but amazing team fight. So the fact that it doesn't generate pressure, kind of like these hunters that are above him, puts him a step below them in my opinion. But with the right composition, there are quite a few gods up here that struggle a lot into a Cupid. But the slows just like really mess them up. Cupid can do a lot. The slows and the cripple. Right after that, we've got AMC, and I'm going to tag along Ho Yi with him. Both these gods do a lot of damage. AMC does a little good bad less damage than he used to do, so he's dropped a little bit. And he still gets killed by the things that killed him before, so which are a lot of things. So you just got to pick him in the right spot to make him have good effectiveness. Usually double guardian is the AMC comp. And then Ho Yi, really good at killing one target once he gets his build online, but that is once he gets his build online. Emphasis on that. And he has very bad wave clear. He gets pressured out pretty easily. You get a Ho Yi on the back foot, and he's suffering until he's 5 items deep. And even when he's 5 items deep, if his Phoenix is down, he can't clear that fire wave. So, yeah, and it's hard for him to switch between multiple frontline targets because he can only mark one of them. So it gets a little tough for the Ho Yeaster. So he's not that great. His bounces aren't as powerful on this map as they were on the other Joust maps. Next up, we got Kali. Kali. I think she's a solid assassin. You just need to pick her very particularly, because she gets countered by a lot of these things. Kabrakan shuts her down. Kuzan, but all of these guardians up here shut her down, except for maybe Atlas. And then you just need the right target for her. If she's able to get on a backliner with the blink for even like 2 seconds, she can burst them. It's just you really need to draft very particularly with her. You need like a Kepriel on her and good coordination with that. You need not an immense amount of hard CC on the other team, particularly Kumbhakarna is what I'm thinking of. And you need the characters that she's trying to kill to not be too slippery. They can't be Kronos. They can't be Camisots. They have to be uh Thoth. They have to be Vulcan. Even Vulcan's a little hard for her. They have to be Baba. She kills Baba very well because she'll kill the Baba in her ult. She can ult the ult to get the knock immunity. Like the Baba's not getting away with just that jump, that little mini jump that gets stunned at easily. So you just gotta pick her right. Persephone after. Same kind of deal. Good damage, but not as much damage as the other mages. And she has a jump. Think that makes her safe? Nope, she's dying to Vamana every time. CC immune ults are the bane of this character's existence. She gets double Kulu ulted, she's in the dirt. The Guan Yu takes her out the game. It's not a good time to be a Persephone. You go against a Blink Mage, Chang'e is gonna kill you every time. And then when all three of the opposing team members have kill pressure on you, you are suffering. Yeah, Persephone, not in the best spot, but if things aren't diving you all the time, she can do a lot. Next up, Tiamat. Exact same thing, pretty much. Things aren't diving you a lot. You can do a lot. You can make it to the late game. Things are doing a lot. I'm going to put her above Persephone, honestly, because Tiamat is pretty decent. I'm going to move her a little bit up. She is better than Yu Huang. I'll be real with you. She's just not as safe, but she does a lot of damage. She uses the tablet, Soul Gem, Soul Reaver build very well. Honestly, it's arguable that she should be up here in the A+. It's just that her early game is so bad. And in a mode like Joust, where at 10 minutes, your death timer is 40 seconds, having a bad early game isn't very good. Okay. Next up, Odin, straight up counterpick god. Usually is not going to do enough damage on his own to be worth relative to pretty much every other warrior in the class. But the cage, he's a cage bot. And if you line him against the right characters, the cage bot role can win you the game. Zhang Kui, same kind of deal. A tanky mage that deals damage. Has to be close, a little awkward. In the right spot can do a lot. Has a Vamana on him, dies every time. Has a hunter hitting him, dies every time. Doesn't out DPS the assassin that gets on his butt. It's tough, be a Shaw. But you line him up into the right target, he's gonna kill Baba Yaga every time if he blinks on her. He's gonna kill Morgan Le Fay probably. He just puts the card in ults and then runs after her. So he has some good matchups. So he's playable. He can be the blink mage like Chang'e, just worse. So yeah, that's Zhang. Next up is Ra. Slippery, long range, follow up damage. Dies to Fenrir. Dies to assassins. Gets outranged by some mages and poked down, like Thoth and Agni. Blinked on by Chang'e, he's dead. Controlled by any of the top 5 guardians up here. Not looking good for Ra. But you got Nezha on your team, and you need some follow-up. And everything else is banned. Ra can be good. Next up, Iset. Iset. She can use Stone of Binding. She has a lot of crowd control. She still dies to Vamana. She still dies to the assassins. She still gets Blink Chang'e ulted. She gets outranged by the mages. She's not the best and not the worst. But if you need that hard crowd control, it'll interrupt them a lot. Like they picked like Double Warrior, Achilles Kakolan type of deal. Iset can do a lot of work because she can control those guys. But she's against Double Guardian and it's Kabrak and Kuzenbo. Yeah, she's gonna die. It's not looking good. You just need her in the right spot, though. Next up, I'm gonna put these guys together because they fulfill similar roles. Maui and Yamoja. They're Kumba-esque picks in that they don't do a ton of damage. Unless you want to build damage for some reason on Yamoja. But they are super strong support picks in the right situations. They can have a big impact. Yamoja with the upgraded med and the Horn Shard. She's got a lot of abilities. She can heal you a lot. She can trap people. Those waves are super nice. They extend like just far enough to trap someone in the mid lane of the Joust map between the two towers. And she just got 4 really, really high impact, solid abilities. So she's good. It's just her damage output and her consistent control relative to these other guardians that are above her. Little lacking. Little lacking. And she's not carrying the game through her damage. So you need to draft damage. Same with Maui. You need to draft damage. But when put into the right spot, great peel gods, great setup gods, they can put your team in good position, really good positions. You just have to have the right picks against the right picks. Next up, Oleron. The Talkine's Gilded Arrow build feels really good on this guy. He's got good wave pressure. It's just things can get on him really easy. Like the Vamana can get on him. I'm just going to keep bringing up the Vamana for these zero escape mages, bro. He's so good at killing them. The Guan Yu is going to shut him down. He's going to struggle a lot with things that can play from range against him, things that can suck him in and then activate their CC immunity, like Baron's going to be a tough one for him. Sheva's going to be a tough one for him. Thoth is going to be impossible for him. Blink Changa's impossible for him. So, there's so many things that are impossible for him, but if you get him against things that are not impossible, I'll bring up Achilles Kakolan again. He can shine really well against those picks that can't close gap extremely easily on him and then stick to him with some sort of long duration CC immunity. He can output that DPS and do it real well. Next up is Discordia. She, you would think, would be really good with the new items in Season 10, and she is really good with the new items in Season 10. It's just, she just doesn't do enough, man. She's really good at giving passive to an assassin on her team and making them run wild. But, other mages, they just do more damage. She has okay control. She's gotten a couple buffs to her ult and her 3, but the other mages just do more. And it feels bad. But she can be a big enabler for another carry on your team. I think mainly assassins for that. Next up, we got our good pal Hera. Kind of similar to Disco in that she's got a decent control, good survivability through that shield. Disco has a similar kind of thing with her jump. But she's just not doing as much. You would think Argus would be super impactful against 2 tanks, because Argus is able to not be killed once he's at least rank 2, because the rank 1 Argus dies really fast. But his health doubles when he hits rank 2. It goes from, I believe, 900 to 1800 health on the Argus, and then it goes by 900 for each rank. So Hera can do things. She can definitely do things in the right spot. She's not getting dove, because she doesn't have a dash, she doesn't have a jump. She's going to get tracked down by a lot of these frontliners. Oh, and she doesn't have a CC immunity. Another big one. Next up, Raijin. He's another mage that you would think would do really well with these items, new items in Season 10, which he does. He does. He really does. He just doesn't do it as well as the others. But he's got 4 really good abilities. They all deal damage. They all fit the items that are in the meta. He's 1 buff away from being a top mage. He's just not there yet. Hebo doesn't use the new items as well as the other mages. But he likes Soul Gem. Get a stack of Soul Gem just for laying your carpet down, so he uses Soul Gem well, actually. It's just, and you'd think he'd be able to use Tablet well, but you're not usually in a spot where you can kind of just walk up to people and blast them with water cannons every 2 seconds. So, yeah. And you can't pick Hebo early or you're getting hard countered. So he is very much a candidate for playable shine in the right spot. Does a lot of damage, but not when he's dead. Cerberus. This Guardian's fallen off a little bit. More of a counter pick when you see Aphrodite on their team. You snap block Cerberus type of deal. Doesn't stack the cloak that great. Great with Stone of Binding, but he just doesn't feel as impactful as the other Guardians. These other Guardians are just a step above him. Present moment. Cooldown's a little bit too long on the Cerberus. Yeah, his pressure isn't that great. Just feels a little lacking. Next up, we got Khepri, who I think I'm actually going to put above Cerberus. I'm going to adjust that. I think Khepri can be really good when paired with the right stuff. You put him with a set, put him with a Camazotz, someone who's diving really hard, but you make a mistake, you might need to bail him out. Put it on Kali. When the enemy team's draft revolves around killing one person, you pick Khepri. And he does great. But he's very susceptible to being focused out himself. So you gotta have the right play style. You know, Khepri, Yamoja, Maui, they operate on a different wavelength than a lot of these other Guardians that are in the top ranks, these high damage, high output, high CC, high damage output, that is, high control. They're different style. And they rock drafts in the right spots. But a lot of people just don't know how to play them and don't know when to use them or how to use them, because that's not the Joust meta. So there's no real need to know how to do that. But if you do know how to do that, you can make something like a Khepri really shine. Something like a Yamoja and Maui really shine in the right spot. Same thing kind of goes for the next god on our list is Geb. Good control. No wave pressure. He's a walking shield, a walking ult, a walking blink ult. Pick him in the right spot against the right gods, you can do a lot. First pick him, you're losing. All right, on to the B tier. So pretty much everything A and above is what you should be seeing in most drafts. Typically A plus and above is what you're gonna be seeing in most drafts, because the A is kind of like it's a counterpick god, really. Or like I want to pick this god for this situation because none of the other ones make sense. Or I'm really comfortable on one of these gods and I think it would do well into that draft, so I'm gonna pick that god. But yeah, pretty much every god after here is a god that you're probably not wanting to play. It's kind of just like, there's probably something better I could go, but I want to play this, so I'm going to play this. Aphrodite. She's not it in season 10, guys. She's not it. Everyone celebrate. King Arthur, he's falling off a bit, man. Things just kill him, man. He gets killed. He gets killed. He can do some things, but you can probably pick another warrior that does more things. Rom, he's actually kind of good, but kind of bad. He needs to get to that late game stage, and even then, sometimes it's not enough. Like it's arguable that should be moved up, but I don't think he's got that. He's an arena powerhouse. He's a slash powerhouse. He's not a joust powerhouse. Uller, he just never feels like he does enough damage to kill a tank, man. You need to draft full early pressure, win the game in 10 minutes with Uller. And if you don't do that, then you lose. It's as simple as that. But if you have somebody that's really comfortable on Uller, and you draft around that player, you can win a lot of games against good players. Someone that's just really precise on the Uller, hits everything. You can set up for him really easily. You pick Kumba. He's feeling good. Donza. He just doesn't do as much as the other guys that are above him. Doesn't do as much damage. He does good damage, not as much damage. So, yeah, he's just a step below these other dudes. They can be a little bit, he can get a little frisky. You can build him tanky too. Can have some impact, but not as much as somebody else built tanky. Daji, straight up counterpick character. Arguable that she should be in the A tier. Maybe I should move her to the A tier, honestly. She's playable. She's very playable. I'll put her in the A tier. Where do I put her here? Maybe like above Odin. Yeah. You put her in the right spot, and that character is a really good counterpick. the Dashi. Because she punishes no CC immunity incredibly hard. It just so happens that almost every character has CC immunity now. They got absolution in the game. You got well-coordinated teams, can make your life very hard. But her burst is good, very relevant. It's just a step below these other assassins that I have above her. But I think she is playable, so I'm gonna move her up to A. Next up, we have Shock. He just does less than the other warriors. It's that sad. Same with Amma. Like, you can draft them in particular comps and they can do things. Like, but just, I don't know. Usually there's just something better. Better warrior. Opwash. He's actually not that bad. He got better with Season 10. But he's not that good. Prophetic Cloak, Talent of Destinies, Glad Shield, Genji's Guard. He can use like the Jormungandr build that I was talking about earlier. And do things, but he's not Jormungandr. So he doesn't do as many things. He's a for fun pick almost. But, you know, he's just enough that he can be here. Vamana can kill him a lot easier now. There's no surviving that. Vamana's kind of a core breaker to a lot of these picks, huh? Ao Kwang. A lot of you guys might not like this, but I think Ao Kwang is not that good. He shines in similar situations to where Achilles shines, where you can't get to the carry, so the tanks are fighting each other, but he wins because he has an execute. A lot of the time you aren't getting that execute because they're getting beads, but a lot of Ao Kwang players are smart now. They don't insta execute the second it appears because they know they have beads. But if they're not allowing you to play that like full tanks on all tanks style, like it just doesn't work. The pick doesn't work, man. He has no wave pressure. And if you can't if both combatants don't want to fight in melee range, he's suffering because he's taking so much damage before he can even get to them. And even if he does get the jump on them, most of them can escape him or control him in a way where he can't stick to the target. So it just makes it really hard if the other team knows how to play against him. And that's a big if depending on your rank or how good you are. Because, you know, there are players in GM and then there are GM Joust players. There's a difference. Okay, next up, Chernobog. Yeah, he's just worse than the other hunters. Not as much damage output. Crazy good late game. But, yeah, he's not there. Hades. He's a pretty spicy pick. He honestly has a little bit more application maybe than I'm giving him credit for. But the other mages just feel better than him right now. But he can be a little bit spicy. A little bit spicy in the right slot when they're drafting to kill your backline. Because he's not going to die very easily. Mercury. Another spicy pick. He can do well into specific carries, but his control built tanky. His control isn't enough in comparison to other picks, I would say. Though it's going to be very hard to kill him. He's not going to provide much wave pressure, so he could get pressured out and just lose off that pretty easily, provided the enemy team drafts correctly. So there's just something better to go most of the time. Bastet, same kind of deal. Like, there are better assassins to pick that have more early presence than her, more burst than her. But she can be a niche pocket pick, depending on what they have and if they've banned out the other assassins that are really strong. So Bastet could be honestly in the same tier as Daji. She's playable. Uh, nah, I'll leave her down here. Same kind of goes for Hoonbots, Ultbot. Not a lot of wave pressure. Gets bullied out. Long cast time on his overhand smash kind of sucks. We're gonna put him down here. Ymir. The walking wall dies easily. Doesn't have consistent pressure. He's a walking wall. You can use the wall well. He can do some things, but probably not better than the other guys that are above him. Athena, the walking taunt. He's not going to put out consistent pressure. You'll notice a trend here with Guardians and consistent pressure being very, very valuable. Consistent pressure, consistent damage, good blink gods, a lot of crowd control. Shines in Joust. And in SMITE. But especially in Joust. Robin. He just never does enough damage to kill you. It's kind of sad. Built full damage or full tank. He's like, he comes off the bench and he scores 10 points, you know? But he's not that great. You can build him so that he just, like, doesn't die, but he'll also not kill. Better picks. Loki. Build him full damage, he can be a little bit of a nuisance. And he's got okay wave pressure, so honestly, he might be better than some of these gods. Maybe I put Loki at the top of A. Yep. Loki's, or the top of B. Probably something better to go than Loki, but he has a niche. He can do things. He's got a good late game. He's hard to kill. You just kind of sit there and wait for something to happen, and then he's going to go in. Kind of like Setter Camazotz. And he can do things. But usually it's not enough things. Though, Loki, honestly, he's a contender for being above Cerberus. I'm going to leave him here, though. Next up, we got Serket. I'll move her up, too, to be with Loki. I think they're about this similar strength. They're kind of just little spicy picks that you can go from time to time. You can do well into some drafts, but it's probably better to pick a different god. And then following that up, we've got a long list of assassins. We're going to go Thor. We're going to go Susano. We're going to go Thanatos. We're going to go Tsukuyomi. Then we're going to go our good friend Lancelot. And Kleena. Where's she at? And then we'll put Rat here too. All these gods are like okay in the right scenarios, but they're just not it. There are better things to go. But you got, there can be pocket picks. Maybe you play with a guy that just mains one or two of these, three of these gods, and he just does amazing every game. Keep picking them. If they're working for you, they're working for you. This is just my point of view. I don't think they do enough in relation to the other picks that you could be going. But that could change. You never know. On her. No range. No wave pressure. Good 1v1. But this is a 3v3 mode. He suffers. Freya. Pretty much the exact same thing. The difference is she makes it to late game and she can do a lot. But even if she does make it to late game, it's not a guaranteed carry for her. So I think she's a bit on the lower side in comparison to her counterparts, Oleron, Sol, Kronos. Am I missing one? She just has no pressure. She gets bullied out, poked out, blinked on, forced to ult. Camazot's blink combos her, and she's just suffering, man. She lands that banish, she gets beads, she's forced into the air. But now your mage is half health and the Camazot's is still full. She can't really turn a fight on him. Like, she gets outranged. Blink ults from Chang'e. Cherry or Guardians are too tanky for her to kill. It's just not a good time. Not a good time to be a Freya. Oh, her build isn't that bad. Telkine's Gilded Arrow. She gets that Spear the Magus Cyclopean ring, kind of like Soul. Or actually, you just go straight rings on her. Just go with the Telkine's. You just go all the rings, honestly. But she just takes too long to come online, and then even when she is online, she's not even like the best win condition. So there's probably something better you could be picking. Scotty, she actually has decent wave pressure, but it's really easy to get on her and stick on her and just have her living the most miserable life. So she's just lower. Sylvanas, kind of like Ymir. He can do some things. He's not completely worthless. He's just not better than the other guys. Same with Wukong. And same with Neith. Same with our good pal Nox. Damage output isn't there. Consistent. If she had lower cooldowns, this character would be a terror. But she doesn't have lower cooldowns. Erlong, Nike, they just don't do as much as the other gods. It's just that simple. Pele, Nemesis, like these are good picks to have in the back pocket, to have in your arsenal if you want to get a little frisky. You want to throw a spanner in the works. Maybe you're like, we're in a tough or in a tight game, but they don't know how to play against this pick. So maybe I whip it out. They can do some things. Definitely do some things. But there probably are better gods that you could go. But if things are banned out and you're not really feeling the things in the A tier as much, and you're just really feeling like you want to play one of these gods, and you think it'll have a big impact, go for it, man. For fun picks, we're gonna hit the Anubis. This one goes without much explanation. Has a lot of damage, but takes a lot of damage, dies really fast. Tier has okay control, but it doesn't have enough damage to compete with the other warriors, not enough control to compete with the other warriors. He's just lacking. He's playing for fun. Same with Poseidon. Same with Bellona. Same with Awilix. These gods, like, they can do some things. Heimdall, Apollo, Kukulkan, Zeus, and Izanami. They're just not it, man. These ones are not it. Like, these ones are already not it, but like, kind of like niche pocket pick. I'm really good at this god. I want to play him. You could probably do it and do some things. These gods kind of the same, but you'll get farmed more often than not. And then that leaves us with the final tier, the trash tier, where yeah, don't even go here. Don't even go here. You don't want to go here. Those are like mega for fun. If you're playing against competent players that are drafting correctly, you are not gonna have fun on pretty much any of the picks in the bottom two tiers here. So yeah, reserve those for the games where it starts off and they ban Anubis, and then they ban Poseidon, and then they ban Ra. Those are the games you want to play the bottom two tier gods. That has been the tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you have lots of things that you would agree with and disagree with. I would love to hear all your thoughts in the comments section. If you think a god is immensely out of the spot where you think it deserves, you really think that Ao Kwang is a first pick ban, he should be in the same rank as Sobek and Kabrakan, let me know and let me know why. Because I like to see the perspective, you know? I'm not an all-knower. This is just my point of view on how the meta is, how it shakes out, what I think does well, what I think doesn't do well, what I think people don't know about the meta that they should know. I could be wrong. Could be very wrong. For all I know, Anubis is S tier. For all we know, Anubis is S tier. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a like on the video and share it with all your friends. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Yada, yada, yada. And, hope to see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.